It's Fernando Ruiz Art.
Hi everybody. Today we are looking at an empty page. Now we're going to be talking about something really specific, and I don't know how much interest this will be for a lot of you, but I'm hoping enough of you will find this at least interesting. Even if you're not artists, this may be a little bit of a nice behind-the-scenes peek at how this stuff is done, and maybe you may learn something interesting along the way. So what I want to talk about is how to rule a comic page. And when I say how to rule it, it means how to measure out my panels, how to prepare the page for me to draw on the page. And before we dig in, I'm going to show you, and I'm going to be working on an actual page that I am using. Now, a little bit of a plug here. Something that I've been working on recently, and those of you who follow me on social media, by the way, my social media is linked to in the description below, so please check it out there, along with my website, FernandoRuizEverybody.com. But if you've been following me, then you know that I've been working on this Afterlife with Archie fan fiction, where I'm kind of writing and drawing my own Archie story. This has nothing to do with the official Archie comic. It has nothing to do with the Archie Comics company or anything that they've published. This I'm just doing for fun, for free, on my own, and I'm just posting it on my social media for people to enjoy. So this is a page, and what I do is I post a new page every Friday. Every Friday, I call it Fan Fiction Friday. Every Friday, a new page of the story goes up. The pages aren't lettered and they aren't inked. They are raw pencils because, well, let's face it, I'm doing this on my own for free, for fun. So my fun will go only so far. So this is a page I have not posted yet. So you guys are getting a real sneak peek to it. So here you can see this page is done. All the panels have been ruled. They've been measured. They're all nice and straight. They're the size that I want them to be. So how do we get this way? How do we make this happen? So that's what I want to look at today. And one of the reasons I'm doing this as a topic is because every September at the Kubert School where I teach, where I've been teaching now for 25. This will be my 26th year. This is something students need to be taught. This is something we can't take this for granted. I know a lot of us think that, well, you just pick up the pencil, you jump in, and you start drawing. But a lot of people just don't know how this is done. Okay, now before we go in, I'm going to talk about my paper, and this is paper I buy myself. I provide myself with. Back in the old days when I was working for Archie Comics, they used to provide me with paper. They used to give me all the paper that I wanted. Now, I was at the mercy of whatever paper they ordered. So it wasn't like I could pick the paper that I like to use, that I like to work on. But, you know, they gave it to me free, so I adapted. I adapted to whatever they threw at me. What I do is I order my paper from bluelineart.com. And I'm not affiliated with them in any way. I'm not getting any kickbacks for plugging them. I'm just letting you know where I get my paper from. I order it from Blue Line Art. I like, excuse me, I like nice, their 400 series 3-ply smooth. Now the 3-ply means it's a little heavier. It's a little bit of a heftier paper. I prefer that. Most people work on 2-ply. I like the 3-ply. And I also like the smooth. You could get a rougher paper that has a little bit more tooth. I like the smooth paper, especially if I'm inking things if I'm inking my own work. I really like the nice smooth paper to work on. Okay, now this is the 3-ply, ruled 3-ply. And we say it's ruled because there are lines. There are some guidelines already on the page. But ruled 3-ply is getting hard to come by because people are having a hard time running this paper through their presses to print the lines on. You could buy unruled 3-ply. Most stores, if they're selling paper, they'll have that. But the pre-ruled 3-ply, that's harder to come by, which is why I will order from Blue Line Art. They have it, so I go to them. Okay, so there are all these lines. Okay, this is why we call it pre-ruled blue line paper, because there are all these blue lines all over the place. And they're blue because, well, they won't reproduce. They won't show up on a Xerox. They won't show up on a scan unless you're doing a color scan. And these are guidelines intended to help us rule the page, intended to help us measure things. Now, I will say right off the bat, if you buy different paper from different companies, their guidelines are going to be all over the place. Okay, their guidelines are going to be different from one company to the next, and this is why. And they don't always follow the industry standard, and this is why I always tell my students, use a ruler. Use a ruler. Measure your what we call the image area. Now, the image area is what the term exactly says, the area containing your image. So this whole space where all my panels are on the page, this is my image area. Now, I am using a 10 by 15 inch image area, okay? 10 inches across by 15 inches lengthwise. That is that image area. Now, if you're a professional and you're working for a company or you're working for a client, it's good to find out what are that client's, that company's preferences. Not every company has the same size requirements. When I was working at Archie, they were totally fine with me working at 10 by 15, okay? And I was happy to work at 10 by 15 because I like to work as large as I can. Now, in working with Dynamite has a different requirement. Now, if you notice, okay, there is this dotted line that goes all the way around the center of the page. Okay, that dotted line, the space within that dotted line, that is what we call the live area. Okay, the live area. Now, what the live area is everything within this space is safe to print. It is guaranteed to print. Now, what does that mean? When paper runs through a printing press, there's no guarantee that paper is always going to go through consistently, smoothly, perfectly, evenly. Sometimes paper goes in kind of cockeyed and it gets mutilated. So, and things can sometimes get cut off. So when we say the live area, things within this space are what are guaranteed to print. Anything outside of the space runs the risk of possibly getting cropped by the printer, by the printing press. Now, that's the theory. Realistically, you're probably safe. Okay, you're probably safe. In fact, you've probably got a good ½ inch beyond this 10 by 15 that I'm using, where things are, you know, will still make it. Beyond that ½ inch, yeah, you're probably going to get cut off. But most of the stuff within the 10 by 15 inches is pretty safe. But everything within the live area, that is absolutely safe. That is that is, you know, pretty guaranteed. So dynamite, working with dynamite, and I think more companies are leaning towards this. Dynamite would prefer that you just work within the live area. They don't want art to extend beyond that. So that's fine. You know, it's not as comfortable for me because really I have to kind of shrink the page and just draw within smaller panels. I like to work larger if I have the option. Now, this being fan fiction, okay, this being all done just for me, well, I have the option. So I'm gonna take advantage of my 10 by 15. Okay, and now a couple other lines I want to point out. If you notice, there's another set of guidelines out here. This is what they call the trim line, which means this is pretty much the limit of where art can reach before it's going to get chopped. So that is the trim line. These two trim lines, okay, and we have a couple little, I hope that this can be seen on camera. We have a couple little lines here in the corners and over here too, in this corner, okay? Now these 2 points, they are not, if I measure them, they are not exactly 10 inches apart, which is what I prefer, okay? I have my ruler here. By the way, it's always better if you're measuring things to stand up. That way you can look down and be perfectly even with what you're lining up. Okay, you see I'm about 1/4 inch before the full 10, okay? It's not quite 10 inches, but I'm gonna live with it. I'll sacrifice that 1/4 inch just to keep things simple for myself and to measure off. I'm gonna go right across there, okay? There we go. Now I'm gonna go to the bottom, and I have, let's see, can I get to the bottom? There we go. I'm gonna line up my ruler there at the trim mark, and over here as well at that trim mark. Let me get this more into the shot. Okay, see, right here and over here. I'm gonna line that up, and then I could go across like this. Okay, so that's the top and the bottom of my image area. For the left and right side of my image area, I'm just going to use the dotted line of the trim line, okay? That's going to be the edge of my page, which is what I did here. Okay, so now I want to go in and put in some panels. Now here's the thing. Let's pretend I've read the script. Let's pretend I've got my information from whatever the writer, in this case the writer is me, which is why, you know, I'm not being too formal about this. But let's pretend I've read the writer's script, okay? Now what I usually do, and this is going to be probably totally meaningless to you, but I will do what is called a thumbnail sketch. And that thumbnail is where I take the writer's story and I scribble out, in using tiny little scribbles, I will scribble out my plan for the page, how I plan on laying out the panels across the page, doing my layout. And this, you know, again, it's probably meaningless to all of you. You guys probably can't make heads or tails of that, but this is what I will start out with. And I will most likely do a few versions of this where I'm just kicking around ideas, making little changes here and there, you know, just modifying things. Here, for example, is a little bit of a larger, tighter version of this same layout. And again, may not make sense to you guys. And I may still make some more changes, and I might still kick this around a little bit. Then what I'll do is I will make a rough, okay? Now, and I always make my students do roughs to size, which means that the roughs should be the same size of the page that they're going to be drawing, okay? This is not, and it's not even proportionate, so I'm really breaking all the rules. But there's enough here where it's going to be my plan, okay? So I'm kind of roughing out my page, roughing out a little bit of my panel compositions, but this is the way I want my page to look. Okay, now, as I said, I'm not doing this proportionately, so I'm really kind of winging some things here. One thing I'm not winging is notice I have this hard, what we call a gutter. A gutter is the space between panels, but I have this hard break in between these panels right here. And I do that intentionally. And I'm gonna go in, this is my rolling ruler. And you see these marks here on the outside of the page? Okay, that tells me where the page can be cut in half. And I wanna do this. I'm gonna do this for a very specific reason. If I ever do anything with these pages, for example, publish them in the form of a webcomic, a half of one of these pages is the perfect ratio for a screen to fit on a computer screen. So each half of a page can fit on a computer screen. Okay. And that's how I've been keeping that in mind as I've worked on these layouts. Okay, so now I have this wide panel, kind of an open panel, which means it has no border. And I'm keeping that very thin. I'll probably just do that as, I'll give that maybe 1.5 inches. Maybe I'll give it a full 2 inches. How about that, 2 inches? Nah. 1 3/4 inches. And I'm going to go to the other side and measure off 1 3/4 inches. And I could certainly change that. And now I'm going to line that up with my ruler. Yep, like that. And there we go. So now this is going to be this silhouetted section of what is going to be Dilton Doyley's laboratory. Now I want some of the black to come down the side here. So I'm going to bring in this panel some, just to give myself a little bit of that space here. So I might actually use the dotted line here. If we could see this, the dotted line of the live area. I'm going to use that as a border for that big panel. And I don't want to go all the way across with this panel, but a little bit more than halfway. So I'm going to measure. That's going to be, I'm going to go maybe 5.5. Let me see, get that on camera. I'm going to measure 5.5 here. And I'm going to go up to the top. And I'm going to measure 5.5 here. And now I'm going to line up those 2 points. And I'm going to measure like so. All right. And this side is going to be that big close-up of Dilton's head. So I'm not going to do anything there. And that's going to be kind of an open panel with this black fade coming down from the silhouette. I think that should look kind of cool. So now I have 2 tiers. And a tier is what we call a row of panels. So I have a tier and a tier. And I have to fit those in the bottom half of my page. So I'm going to measure, let me see what this would be like. I have that bottom half is a little under 7.5 inches. So if I go, say I go to 3 1/4, leave myself a gutter of 1/4 inch. I'm going to go to the other side, down here, 3 1/4 and 1/4 inch for the gutter. And now I'm going to go and I'm going to close this up, lay down my ruler, draw that line and draw this line. And now I have created 2 tiers. I hope this shows up. So now what I can do, now I'm not going to take you through this, but you see these tiers, there's 4 panels in the bottom tier, 2 panels in the top tier. So I could go in, now that I have those tiers measured out, I can go in and let's say I want the panels to be in the top tier to be maybe a wide one at, let's go 5 1/4. Again, 1/4 inch for the gutter. Come down here, 5 1/4, 1/4 inch for the gutter. Measure off the edge of the panel, measure off that gutter, and there we have it. I hope that shows up. There we go. Now we've got 4 panels to do across the bottom, but I'm not going to take you through those. I would do those pretty much as I just showed you. So, you know, measure out how wide I want each of these panels. And what I want is these panels to get gradually narrower. So I'll figure that out. Maybe this will be, you know, 4 inches, 3 inches, 2, and then 1 inch. And that's just a ballpark. I know that math didn't exactly measure up. And I've also got to take into account the gutters. Okay, that 1/4 inch that's going to be in between each of these panels. But that's how we do it. That is how we measure out. That is what we call ruling a comic page. Like I said, I don't know if this was of interest to anybody. I hope it was. I know my students really need to hear this every year, so maybe I'll play this video for them. I hope that was of interest to you guys. Let me know in the comments below. Was this of interest, or was this just, you know, just totally torturous boredom for you? Let me know in the comments below. And if you have any questions, if anything that I said wasn't clear, please let me know in the comments below as well. If you enjoyed this, please click like. Please subscribe, and please keep coming back. Keep looking for more videos. I will see you guys next time, and in the meantime, keep drawing, everybody. Keep drawing. Bye-bye, everybody.